Neoplasia syndrome type 2, or if you're allergic to Trulicity. Stop Trulicity and call your doctor right away if you have a lump or swelling in your neck, severe stomach pain, or symptoms like itching, rash, or trouble breathing. Serious side effects may include pancreatitis. Taking Trulicity with a sulfonylurea or insulin increases your risk for low blood sugar. Common side effects include nausea, diarrhea, vomiting, decreased appetite, and indigestion. Some side effects can lead to dehydration, which may worsen kidney problems.
I choose once weekly Trulicity to activate my within.
If you need help lowering your A1C and blood sugar, activate your within. Ask your doctor about once weekly Trulicity.
Well, the president returns to a different White House tonight with a new economic advisor on the way in and a number of other officials potentially on the way out. Washington also is facing a different reality tonight. A lot of Republicans on Capitol Hill very concerned about what they have seen in the race in Pennsylvania, a race which is still at this point too close to call, though it does seem as if the Democrat is in the lead. I want to bring in Paul Begala and Steve Cortes. Actually, I'm sorry. First, let's go to Jeff Zeleny, who's standing by at the White House. Jeff, explain the White House's reaction to this tonight.
Well, Anderson, there's no question the White House quickly moved to distance itself from what appears to be a loss there. I mean, the president, of course, was in Pennsylvania over the weekend talking about the fact that he won the district by some 20 points. Even as he was doing that, we were told he was had a sense that it was not going in the right direction. Now, they were afraid in the, about 24 hours ago of getting blown out there. So they believe, that his visit may have tightened it. But the reality here is the White House, not surprisingly, blaming it on Saccone, saying he was not a candidate for this moment here. Not taking any responsibility, though, for the fact that the president, he may have helped drive some turnout at the end, but his policies over the last year certainly excited Democrats far more.
Jeff, I mean, even as the president was campaigning in Pennsylvania last weekend for Saccone, the White House had already started to try to distance itself from the candidate.
I mean, they did. I mean, this is something we've seen. The White House has gotten a bit of practice at this, Anderson, quite frankly, through special elections. In Alabama, of course, most prominently with that Senate race there, the president went all in for Roy Moore. Of course, he lost. So the White House was doing a bit of that playbook here, distancing itself, blaming the candidate, again, not talking about their own policies. But Anderson, it's one of the reasons the president was raising money again tonight in St. Louis, I'm told some $2 million. And the question here is he better off, is a better use of his time to be at closed-door fundraisers, not big rallies? Because when he does these big rallies, he also energizes the other side, the Democratic base here. So that is something we're going to be watching with much interest to see if this president is not in as high of demand as he hopes he might be.
Jeff Zeleny. Jeff, thanks very much. Joining us, two political veterans, Democratic strategist Paul Begala and former Trump campaign advisor Steve Cortes. Paul, you wrote in a column for CNN.com, and I want to get the title right. You said Republicans are going to need a bigger yacht, referencing the old line from Jaws, because of the results. Why should this send them into a panic? That's what you seem to be implicating.
Because although President Trump is still reasonably popular in that district, which he won by 20 points, he's still above water there. That is to say, he's more popular than not. He couldn't save Rick Saccone. A lot of Democrats are saying he sunk him. I don't believe that. But he couldn't save him. It means if you're a congressional Republican, even in a district like this, which is 94% white, it's the 7th whitest congressional district in America. And 3 out of 5 of those white people in that district have only a high school education. Trump dominated there, and he couldn't save Rick Saccone. This happens a lot. Barack Obama, a very gifted politician, couldn't save Democrats in those midterms. But the Republicans now face a terrible conundrum. They can try to run away from Trump, in which case they'll probably lose, or they can embrace Trump like Rick Saccone, in which case they'll lose narrowly.
But a lot of Republicans last night were saying, Jason Miller was making this point last night, that after Trump spoke, actually Saccone's numbers went up 5 points.
So maybe. He still lost. So he lost a more narrow race. The notion that Trump can save these folks, I mean, he ran.
I agree. I don't think Trump can save him, but I don't know that he would have been in the race without Trump. So I would echo what Jason Miller said.
He won the district by 25. I'd be in a race without Trump.
I'm saying Saccone wouldn't be. Look, I think what we learned from last night, Tip O'Neill taught us that all politics is local, and I think that's true. And what we saw last night is that Rick Saccone is not even close to the politician Donald Trump is. But what we also saw on the Democratic side is that Conor Lamb is a far better politician than Hillary Clinton was. Likable, moderate, worked hard, campaigned hard, did all the things that Hillary Hillary Clinton didn't do. Now, having said that, I'll be the first to say, am I worried about the fall? Of course I am. And you know why? History. So let's put this in context, too. There's a lot of talk about us losing seats. History says that's extremely likely. My colleague Paul knows very well what happened during the Clinton White House in the midterms. The last three really popular two-term presidents, Barack Obama, Bill Clinton, and Ronald Reagan, all three of them had disastrous first midterms.
Paul, we heard a lot from the White House, though, today saying, well, look, the reason Lamb won is because he essentially is Donald Trump light, that he embraced the president. And,
See, that's so dumb. Okay, what Steve says is really smart, which is...
But he did. I mean, Rand. He said he didn't support Nancy Pelosi. He wanted to appear, I think, with an AR-15 in one of his campaign commercials. I mean, he wasn't out there talking about climate change and a lot of issues which Democrats made traditional.
There are important lessons here for Democrats.
Though he does support Affordable Care Program. Anyway,
right. He ran on middle-class economics, so he's pro-union, pro-Medicare, pro-Social Security. He was also pro-Roe v. Wade. He was pro-background checks, but not nearly as liberal as most Democrats.
He said he was personally pro-life, but would not vote that way.
Right, and there was a bill up in Congress that would have restricted a woman's right to choose. He gave an interview to the Weekly Standard. We said, no, I would vote against that. So he ran on a very democratic. The most important thing is he attacked the Trump tax cuts. Republicans came in and spent millions trying to make that an issue, and then they stopped advertising it. Why? Because they were losing on their signature accomplishment. This is why smart Republicans are looking at this, and they're saying, this is not heartburn. Okay, this is a heart attack.
So you don't believe?
You don't
believe? Do you believe, Steve? Are you arguing that, along with the White House, that he's Trump light? That he basically is sort of?
I wouldn't say Trump light, but I think he's a sensible Democrat. But I would also say this: there's not many sensible Democrats. You mentioned Nancy Pelosi. There's not a lot of Connor Lambs out there. There's a lot more within the Democratic bench. A lot more Nancy Pelosi's and Elizabeth Warren.
Right. I mean, had there been a Democratic primary, Lamb may not have even been able to win a Democratic primary.
You know, he made an interesting, in his speech, was at 1 o'clock last night, which I was on CNN to listen to. He mentioned something about his grandparents' Democratic Party. And it really made me think about my own grandmother, my maternal grandmother, Irish Catholic Democrat who loved FDR and JFK. The Democratic Party left that kind of voter, clearly, from the 1960s onward. Connor Lamb is an attempt to try to get that kind of voter back. Right. Tons of those voters in the 18th District of Pennsylvania. But on a national level, to try to fix this to Trump, this is the point I want to make. I'm worried about the fall, quite frankly. I am. And I think history tells you should be. As
because of
party.
Trump.
No, more just because of history, because of what happens generally in the first midterm. But I'm not at all worried about 2020 with Donald Trump. And the reason I say that is Trump, if Trump were running in the 18th district, he would have won by 20 points again. I guarantee it. Well, because of the kind of politician he is and because of the way he excites that very base that Lamb was able to win
Paul,
back.
what about Jeff Zelany's argument that some people are concerned that Donald Trump appearing, yes, it can energize the base, but it also can energize the opposition too?
That's the problem. And not just the opposition. The people who voted for Trump and now are disappointed in him. We do these endless stories, and I read the books on him and everything about Trump voters who would stay with him even if, as President Trump said, I shot a man on Fifth Avenue, they'd still be with me. Those are interesting people, but not that interesting analytically. What's much more interesting is those Trump voters who've now switched. Now they're Connor Lamb voters. And now they're Ralph Northam voters in Virginia. Now they're Doug Jones.
The Democratic Party? Because, I mean, to Steve's point, there's not necessarily a lot of Connor Lambs, or are there?
Well, we just had a very talented moderate Democrat, and Doug Jones won in Alabama. Moderate Democrat, Ralph Northam won in Virginia. Here's the difference. The Democratic Party is a big tent. Connor Lamb proved, even though he wasn't for Nancy Pelosi, the Democratic Party came in, the Democratic Congressional Committee spent $1 million to support him. What Republican will break with Trump and still get support from the national Republicans? None, because the Republican Party has become a cult of personality. The Democratic Party is learning that we got to be about ideas and be for something.
Tell that
not just
to Ben Sasse and Lindsey Graham and John McCain and all the people
who the president cut off
constantly. But look, Connor Lamb. Here's why I'm not worried about 2020. Is that Connor Lamb or a candidate like him can never win on a national basis in the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party nationally is far too left, and their primary tilts far too left for somebody like him to win. Instead,
I laugh because Steve is an acknowledged expert on my party.
Well, I mean,
I studied quite a bit.
Bill Clinton, he won the Democratic nomination. We'll have others.
Yeah, but that was a while ago.
It was a while ago.
Has not the Democratic Party moved to the left?
Waxes and wanes. Absolutely. Absolutely. But the thing that's most impressive about Connor Lamb's victory, like these others I mentioned in Virginia and Alabama, is people who voted for Trump who are already quitting on him. Those are the most interesting voters out there.
And do you see significant movement in that?
Especially with Lamb. Mostly it's been college-educated white people in Virginia, in Alabama. Here, the college-educated white people, who always have been Republican, always, are now, they've been switching, and they switched for Hillary. Now, for the first time, we're seeing some, not a ton. It's a crack, as Ron Brownstein wrote in The Atlantic. It's a crack, not a collapse in their wall. But you're seeing some high school educated white people in this Pennsylvania 18th saying, you know what, I've had a belly full of Trump's tax cuts and his policies.
Well, is that based on policies, or is that based on personal, on chaos in the White House, things like that?
Chaos doesn't help. It doesn't. But I'm telling you, Democrats who run on Medicare and Social Security are going to win.
Paul Begala, Steve Cortes, appreciate it. Thanks. Good discussion. Coming up next, the former Director of National Intelligence, James Clapper, on the House Intelligence Committee member who says he knows the raw intelligence on Russian election interference better than, well, James Clapper. Be right back.
When this bell rings, it starts a chain reaction that's heard throughout the connected business world. AT&T Network Security helps protect business from the largest financial markets to the smallest transactions by sensing cyber attacks in near real time and automatically deploying countermeasures, keeping the world of business connected and protected. That's the power of AND.
For all the eyes that get itchy and watery near pollen, there's Flonase Sensimist. It relieves all your worst symptoms, including nasal congestion, which most pills don't, and all from a gentle mist you can barely feel. Flonase Sensimist.
I am totally blind, and Non-24 can throw my days and nights out of sync, keeping me from the things I love to do. Talk to your doctor and call 844-214-2424.
With 5 times more ethnic regions, Ancestry DNA can pinpoint where your ancestors are from and the paths they took to a new home. Could their journey inspire yours? Order your kit at ancestrydna.com.
Going somewhere? Here's some advice. TripAdvisor now searches more than 200 booking sites to find the hotel you want and save you up to 30%. Trust this bird's words. TripAdvisor.
So, that goal you've been saving for? You can do it.
We can do this.
At Fidelity, our online planning tools are clear and straightforward, so you can plan for retirement while saving for the things you want to do today.
For my constipation, my doctor recommended I switch to Miralax. Stimulant laxatives make your body go by forcefully stimulating the nerves in your colon. Miralax is different. It works with the water in your body to hydrate and soften, unblocking your system naturally. Miralax.
When the papacy is up for grabs.
We have 3 popes, and there is no one to declare which one is the most legitimate.
Anything is possible.
Who's the real pope?
Pope, Sunday at 10 on CNN.
NerdWallet.com knows that it can be hard to know. Sometimes options seem similar. And you don't want to wing it. But when it comes to credit cards, you can breathe easy. NerdWallet has all the info you need in one place to help you find the lowest rate, most cash back, or sweetest perks. Nothing beats knowing. Find your next card today at NerdWallet.com.
Introducing Pulse. Broken phone? We fixed that. It couldn't be easier. We'll be there in a heartbeat 7 days a week. Check us out at Pulse.com. Pulse, for the ups and downs of digital life. Introducing Pulse. New TV to install? We do that. It couldn't be easier. We'll be there in a heartbeat 7 days a week. Check us out at Pulse.com. Pulse, for the ups and downs of digital life.
This is CNN, the most trusted name in news.
The House Intelligence Committee plans to vote next week on a final version of its report on their Russia investigation, while at the same time, Republicans on the committee are already hedging about their own conclusions. So let's just explain the timeline and get it set here. 2 nights ago, you may remember, Monday night, Republicans on the committee said they were shutting down their Russia probe after concluding that there was no collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia. And that message worked, at least on Fox News, where the story was just no collusion, just like the president's oft-repeated 2-word mantra. Now, remember, this committee is chaired by Devin Nunes, who was exposed working with the White House to cover for the president's false allegation that he was wiretapped by President Obama. Now, on Monday night, House Republicans said not only was there no collusion, but they reportedly didn't even believe that Russia's meddling had the purpose of helping Donald Trump as a candidate. Never mind that that's something the intelligence community agrees on. Then yesterday, some key members of the committee already started backing away from that. We're talking about Trey Gowdy, who admitted it was clear Russia was at least trying to undermine Hillary Clinton. Republican Mike Conaway, who's also on the committee, said whether one concludes the Russian effort was designed to help Mr. Trump get elected is a, quote, glass half full, glass half empty kind of thing, whatever that means. Now, on Monday, I asked committee member Chris Stewart, a Republican, why he doubted the intelligence community's assessment about Russia's motives. And he basically said he knew better than former Director of National Intelligence, James Clapper.
I have done something now that he has not done. And that is, I have spent a couple days out to the CIA actually reading the raw intelligence, actually reading what we were basing this on. And when we release that report, we're going to be able to show, you know what, the CIA just got it wrong. Just like they did, by the way, in the Gulf War, where they said there was weapons of mass destruction that we didn't find.
So with me now is former Director of National Intelligence, James Clapper. So Director Clapper, I mean, is there any truth to what Congressman Stewart just claimed? Is he in a position to read raw data and interpret it more accurately than the officers and analysts at the CIA or the FBI or DNI?
Well, he's certainly entitled to, access to anything he sees a need for. And I think this was done in the immediate aftermath of the report that we did, the highly classified version, in January of 2017. And I don't agree with his findings here, and I just take a moment to explain here how this was done. We put together a team of almost 30 people composed of experts from the three agencies, NSA, FBI, and CIA, who are steeped in Russia and understand what goes on in Russia and understand Putin. And that was augmented by three people or so from my staff, and that's who put together this report. This was not done by Jim Clapper, Jim Comey, John Brennan, and Mike Rogers. So we had, and these are professional civil servants, career officers in the intelligence community. And I don't know quite how Congressman Stewart, whom I respect, former Air Force veteran like myself, but I don't know how he knows what I read or what I was exposed to 14 or 15 months ago, and to say that I didn't read anything. I reviewed this reporting in depth with John Brennan, the director of the CIA at the time. And so it was the compilation of not just one reporting stream, which he seems to have focused on, but a compilation of information drawn from all sources. But let's just, for the sake of...
So, sorry, when he says he went to the CIA and read the raw data there, you're saying, the raw intelligence there, you're saying he got, his access was only to CIA information that would have been at Langley, not necessarily NSA information or FBI information?
Well, that's what he said. I don't know. He may have gone to NSA or FBI or gained access to that information. I don't know. Mm. I believe the committee staff did a fairly detailed wire brush scrubbing of the report, which was heavily footnoted so they could check all the sources at the time. So here we are 14 plus months later, and the Republicans, or at least some Republicans on the committee, now are taking exception to the conclusion we drew, was one, the Russians sought to sow discord and discontent, which they succeeded to it fairly well, because of the strong personal animus that Putin had for the Clintons, both of them, but particularly Hillary. They did everything they could to hurt her, and accordingly, as time went on, drew the conclusion that candidate Trump would be much better for them than she would be. So, but let's just put aside for that single stream of reporting for the moment and look at all the other evidence that where fingerprints of Putin are clearly there. So these instrumentalities like the Russian intelligence services who are actively engaged in this, or the Internet Research Agency, as documented in the indictment of the 13 Russians, these things are controlled by Putin. Any big decisions in Russia are made by one guy, Putin. And the Russians are actively engaged in war against us in the information sphere. And Putin is orchestrating this. And he orchestrated and he called the shots during the run-up to the election, and he's still doing it.
Mm. So, I mean, Congressman Stewart also likened this situation to when the intelligence community got it wrong when it came to Iraq and WMDs. Is that a fair comparison? I mean, his point was, look, they got it wrong then, maybe they're wrong now.
Yeah, we did get it wrong. There's no question about it. And I'm very familiar with that, since my fingerprints were on the infamous weapons of mass destruction National Intelligence Estimate in October 2002. But believe me, the intelligence community is a learning organization, and we profited from that bad experience and have built in all kinds of safeguards and checks and balances to ensure that that sort of thing doesn't happen again. So yes, you can point to something we did 15 years ago, but that's not necessarily relevant in this particular case.
The way this investigation unfolded in the House Intelligence Committee, how much does it undermine, or in your opinion, does it undermine the credibility of this report? I mean, do you think we can trust anything in this report?
Well, unfortunately, and this is kind of sad for me, is that the credibility of the committee is basically about zero because they were so partisan. I've been around, Anderson, since those two committees were stood up, the HPSCI in 1976 and the Senate Intelligence Committee a year later. And so I've watched them over the years. And the only time the committees are effective is when they are bipartisan. And the House Intelligence Committee is paralyzed because of the partisanship that is emerged over this and the politicization of intelligence, which is what they're supposed to safeguard against.
Director Clapper also gained some access to some raw intelligence tonight, and I just want to be sure to wish you a very happy birthday today.
Thank you, Anderson. There's no place I'd rather be than here with you on my birthday.
I'm sure that's true. 29 years old. Congratulations. You accomplished so much. Director Clapper, thank you as always. Coming up, students today across the country walking out of class demanding stricter gun control laws 1 month after the Stoneman Douglas shooting. We'll talk to one of the students from Stoneman Douglas, David Hogg, about remembering his classmates today.
We had a vacation that kind of put us in a hole.
I had a little incident with a moped in Bermuda. Even with insurance, we had to dip into our 401k, and it set us back a little bit.
Sometimes you don't have a choice, but it doesn't mean you guys can't get back on track.
Great.
Yeah.
No judgment, just guidance. TD Ameritrade. Allergies with sinus congestion and pressure? You won't find relief here. Go to the pharmacy counter for powerful Claritin D. While the leading allergy spray relieves 6 symptoms, Claritin D relieves 8, including sinus congestion and pressure. Claritin D relieves more.
4 hijackers. 100 commandos.
There could be no negotiations with terrorists.
1 legendary operation.
Here we go!
4 stars. It will leave you gasping for air. 7 days in Entebbe. Rated PG-13.
We use Angie's List because we can always find great local pros.
For any type of home project.
I use Angie's List if I need to find a plumber.
An electrician.
A painter.
I always use Angie's List because it's free.
It's free for me to read reviews written by real customers.
We can check their reputation to make sure they do quality work.
And now, to save time, Angie's List can actually match my project to a few qualified pros who can do the job.
To get the most reviews from real customers, all for free, go to angieslist.com today.
24 on the clock. He pushes down court, splits the defense. Look at that crossover. Changes direction, goes around the back. With 10 seconds to win it, he's got to make a decision. He draws contact. He goes up and under. It's good. What an incredible finish.
Hi, I'm Ron Reagan, an unabashed atheist, and I'm alarmed by the intrusions of religion into our secular government. That's why I'm asking you to support the Freedom from Religion Foundation, the nation's largest and most effective association of atheists and agnostics, working to keep state and church separate, just like our founding fathers intended. Please support the Freedom from Religion Foundation. Ron Reagan, lifelong atheist, not afraid of burning in hell.
Before discovering Nexium 24-Hour to treat her frequent heartburn, Lucy could only imagine enjoying a slice of pizza. Now, it's as easy as pie. Nexium 24-Hour stops acid before it starts for all-day, all-night protection. Can you imagine 24 hours without heartburn?
We talking March Madness, people. Questions?
Are there any proven statistical tips to filling out a bracket?
Your best bet is to not pick any team you don't think doesn't have any chance to advance if you have it otherwise ruled out, ruling them out. Great question. You guys are into it.
Life is complicated, but life insurance doesn't have to be. Welcome to Haven Life. We're changing the way you buy quality term life insurance so that it's actually simple. With us, you can get affordable coverage online from wherever, whenever you want. If approved, choose your coverage amount and term length. Just like that, peace of mind. Backed by MassMutual, a leading insurer. Easy, dependable, affordable. That's Haven Life. Get your real rate today.
I'm here to prove that Purple Mattress blows memory foam out of the bedroom. Ready, Billy? No, I just stepped it. Perfect. Just look at how the Purple Smart Comfort Grid, made from a super comfy yet ultra supportive material called hyperelastic polymer, cradled those unfertilized chickies.
Purple's unique design cradles your pressure points and redistributes support to the rest of your body for maximum comfort and support.
Go to purplemattress.com and get the best rest of your life.
American Dynasties, The Kennedys, Sundays at 9 on CNN.
In cities across the country today in waves as the clock struck 10 a.m. local time in classrooms coast to coast, students got up and walked out of class demanding stricter gun control. The message, 1 month the day after the shooting at Stoneman Douglas High School in Florida: we stand with you, we're the future, and we want change. Scott McLean reports tonight.
What started in Florida on display today in schools across the country. Students in New York showing solidarity with students in Parkland, Florida. In Washington, students, most not old enough to vote, sending a clear message to the White House.
Make America safe again, end gun violence! Make America safe again, end gun violence!
And demanding action from lawmakers.
What Parkland showed us is that this could happen in any one of our schools. And we as students can't take this anymore.
Some messages could only be seen from the air. A heart in Green Mills, Pennsylvania. In Portland, Oregon, a peace sign. And in Los Angeles County, California, the word enough. The walkouts lasted 17 minutes for the 17 victims in Parkland. In St. Louis, 17 empty chairs, another sign of those lost. Students at Columbine High School, who weren't even born when 13 were killed inside of their school, still feel the impact 19 years later.
Every time I walk into a new classroom, first thing I do at any year is to find the best place to hide in the door. In the case of an accident, it's just a subconscious reaction. Any doorway I walk through, that's the first thing going through my mind, just in case. What if?
These elementary students had a message in song.
Scott McLean joins us now from a rally in Colorado, where students have gathered from a number of high schools, including Columbine. So I understand students in Littleton have tried to steer clear of partisan politics. Why?
Yeah, Anderson, not only that, but they're trying to make it clear that they still support the Second Amendment because they don't want to lose support for their cause from students whose families own guns. They say that if this debate becomes purely a partisan one, then nothing will get done. That said, organizers here tonight say that they invited politicians from both parties, but so far only Democrats have shown up. Anderson.
All right, Scott McLean, appreciate it. Thanks. Joining us now, one of the Stoneman Douglas High School students who emerged as a vocal advocate for change on gun control issues after the shooting in Parkland, David Hogg. David, thanks for being with us. When you see the response from waves of high school students across the nation today, first of all, just what goes through your mind?
I think it really shows that change is coming, change is here, and change is here to stay. It shows that we have a national movement of young people, future voters, and the future of our country coming out and standing together with us, because we've allowed this to happen to us as children. We're not going to allow it to happen to our children and in our future.
What about, you heard the concerns of some students in Littleton who were saying they don't want people to think that this is against the Second Amendment, and they don't want to sort of alienate kids of families who do own guns and are, go hunting and are supporters of the Second Amendment.
Exactly, and I'm one of those families. We have guns in my house. My dad's a retired FBI agent. There are multiple people in the Never Again movement that have guns in their house. And we are not trying to fight against the Second Amendment here. We're not trying to take your guns. We're trying to implement sensible gun legislation that prevents criminals, people that are mentally unstable, and people that just shouldn't have a gun in the first place from being able to get one. We're just trying to save our lives. We're not trying to take anyone's guns. And really quickly, I have a big announcement to make about the march. We're going to have 4 major independent women that are standing up and walking beside us, and those are Ariana Grande, Jennifer Hudson, Miley Cyrus, and Demi Lovato. And they're going to be standing there with us and marching with us, and they're just some of the few people that are really coming out and stepping up with us. And I think that's part of the huge support that we're starting to see. We're not only seeing students that are stepping up now, we're seeing young Americans and young adults that are standing up with us, and that's how we're going to see this change.
I wonder what your reaction is to the House today passing what they call the Stop School Violence Act, authorizing money to help train students, teachers, administrators to identify and report warning signs of violence. They say it got bipartisan support, but the legislation doesn't tackle anything dealing with gun control.
I'm not surprised at all. You know why? Because these politicians are still owned by the NRA. So is Florida. But we've seen in Florida that we can pass at least some form of gun legislation, and seeing that passed gives me hope that better gun laws can be passed in our country. But it's certainly a small step in a much bigger movement, and we need to see a lot more action. We haven't seen any talk about the Dickey Amendment. We haven't seen any talk about just the digitalization of ATF, or even universal background checks that have essentially 100% support by constituents. How are we not talking about these things? They have widespread political support, and they're things that are sensible gun reform that allow people to own their guns and save lives.
I imagine you're pretty disappointed in the president, who, seemed to be embracing some positions, certainly on bump stocks, on raising the age to 21 for buying long rifles and other measures, and then basically sort of stopped talking about raising the age to 21, is now saying, well, let's look at some lawsuits and let's look at it state by state.
Now, I respect Donald Trump as the president, but I think he needs to realize that if he wants to call out these people for being owned by the NRA like he did in one of the White House meetings, he can't just step back and submit and bow to them. He can't. He is the president of the United States. He needs to show that he, like these other politicians, is not owned by the NRA. But what he does when he makes these statements and then steps back on them after meeting with people from the NRA and showing that he's intimidated by them, is he makes us look weak as a country, and that's not okay. We need to stand up and show that we are stronger than the NRA because we are the USA.
You think he's intimidated by the NRA, even though he was chiding Republicans for being intimidated by them?
If he wasn't intimidated by them, then why would he step down?
David Hogg, appreciate your time tonight. Thank you very much. Coming up, remember when HUD Secretary Ben Carson said he didn't know anything about that $31,000 dining room set that was ordered for his office? Well, some new emails suggest otherwise. We're keeping him honest ahead.
Ron, they're finally taking down that Schwab billboard.
Oh, not so fast, Carl.
Oh no, Schwab again. Index investing for that low?
That's 3 times less than Fidelity.
And 4 times less than Vanguard.
What next? No minimums?
No minimums.
Schwab has lowered the cost of investing again, introducing the lowest cost index funds in the industry with no minimums.
I bet they're calling about the Schwab news.
Schwab, a modern approach to wealth management.
The fastest Samsung ever demands T-Mobile, the fastest network ever, because fast should be fast. Pre-order the new Samsung Galaxy S9 for half off.
24 on the clock and the game. He pushes down court looking for options, steps through the trap to get free, maneuvers around the perimeter, splits the defense. Look at that crossover, changes direction, goes around the back. With 10 seconds to win it, the crowd on its feet. He's got to make a decision. He calls for an ISO. One-on-one for the win. Spin move. He draws contact. He goes up and under. It's good. They win. What an incredible finish.
What the hell happened last night?
It was an accident. Senator Kennedy made every effort possible to save her.
A dead body holds a lot of secrets. Those can be the difference between guilt and innocence.
Are you saying that maybe she didn't drown?
I could have had her out of that car in 25 minutes if I got the call. But no one called.
Chappaquiddick, rated PG-13, in theaters April 6th.
How we see, how we look. Great eyewear is all about both. Thoughtful design. Precision optics. Styles people love. At Zenni.com, we make it all stunningly affordable. So you can see the world the way it's meant to be seen. In perfect focus. Zenni.com. Eyewear for everyone.
I've learned from war survivors how to rebuild. I've asked world leaders about the moments that really matter. I've discovered the passion created by faith. And now I'm on a new, unexpected journey to understand the rules of engagement in our most intimate relationships.
Let's talk about sex.
A CNN original series, Christiane Amanpour, Sex and Love Around the World, premieres Saturday at 10.
Did you know that every time you use the internet, you put yourself at risk? Not only can your internet service provider see every website you visit, hackers can see your transaction details, strangers can monitor your children's activity, and your information can be exploited without your knowledge. That's why you need NordVPN. NordVPN uses military-grade security protocols that protect your information so no one can see what you do online. In just a few clicks, you can protect up to 6 devices for just $4 per month. Don't risk being hacked. Install NordVPN and protect yourself from annoying ads, cyber criminals, and strangers, all while you enjoy secure streaming, ad blocking, and malware blocking benefits. For ultimate online privacy, there's only one solution: NordVPN. To get military-grade security for the whole family on up to 6 devices from just $4 per month, visit NordVPN.com/TV today.
This is CNN, the most trusted name in news.
Well, the tables may have turned for HUD Secretary Ben Carson over a $31,000 dining set that was ordered for his office. Now, when word got out, a HUD spokesman said the secretary knew nothing about the purchase. Well, now emails seem to contradict that entirely. CNN's Renee Marsh has details.
At HUD headquarters, the dining set ordered for Secretary Ben Carson's dining room may have been canceled, but the controversy is far from over. The $31,000 dining set included a mahogany table, 10 mahogany dining chairs, a sideboard, and break front. A HUD spokesman blamed the purchase on a career staffer, but newly released emails indicate Secretary Ben Carson and his wife selected the furniture themselves. An August email from a HUD staffer with the subject line, "Secretary's dining room furniture needed," refers to, quote, printouts of the furniture the secretary and Miss Carson picked out. It's that line that casts doubt on Carson and his agency spokesman's claim that he and Miss Carson had little or no involvement in the purchase of the pricey furniture. American Oversight, a liberal watchdog group, sued to get the documents.
They lied. The internal emails show that he was intimately involved. His wife was intimately involved.
A HUD spokesman told CNN last month the Carsons had, quote, zero awareness of this purchase being made. Later, Secretary Carson painted a picture of limited involvement, saying, quote, I briefly looked at catalogs for dining furniture and was shocked by the cost. As for Miss Carson, my wife also looked at catalogs and wanted to be sure that the color of the chair fabric of any set matched the rest of the decor. But in another email, Carson's scheduler writes, quote, hi, Miss Carson, and invited her to visit HUD and meet with a designer about possibly redecorating the secretary's office and bringing in new furniture. It's unclear if Miss Carson accepted the invite.
I don't think there's any doubt that Mrs. Carson, who is not a public employee and faces no accountability, has a very large amount of power at HUD. And that's not how we should run our government.
Carson is already facing questions about his son's involvement at HUD. Ben Carson Jr., who is not a federal employee, helped organize a listening tour for his father in Baltimore, despite agency lawyers warning it could violate ethics rules because of Carson Jr.'s personal business dealings in the city. HUD's Inspector General is looking into the matter. The agency's furniture spending came to light after HUD employee Helen Foster filed a sworn whistleblower complaint with the Office of Special Counsel. Foster says she was demoted in part for telling her bosses she would not ignore a law that limits Carson's office redecorating budget.
$31,000 in my mind for a dining table for an agency that's cutting billions away from poor people is, poor judgment no matter who made it.
And Renee Marsh joins us now. So are we learning anything new in regards to Secretary Carson's standing with the president in light of this new reporting?
Right, so we reached out to the White House today, and they are not commenting officially on this whole incident, but the president is frustrated with all of the negative headlines involving his cabinet secretaries. And when it specifically comes to Carson, an administration official tells CNN White House producer Kevin Liptak that President Trump is disturbed by the bad headlines surrounding Ben Carson. Trump has made it known across the cabinet that he has no tolerance for these sort of ethics scandals, and people inside the West Wing believe that he is ready to clean house. But the caveat, Anderson, the timing and the precise shakeup will happen when one man wants it to happen, and that one man is President Trump. Anderson?
Renee Marsh, thanks very much. Coming up, whether it's getting fired by tweet or resigning in scandal, it's the White House shakeup that never seems to end. We'll talk about who may be next.
DirecTV Now gives you more for your thing. Your letting go thing. Your sorry, not sorry thing. You're out with the old, in with the new, onto bigger and better thing. Get the live TV you love. No bulky hardware, no satellite, no annual contract. Try DirecTV Now for $10 a month for 3 months. More for your thing. That's our thing. Visit DirecTVNow.com.
Your body was made for better things than rheumatoid arthritis. Before you and your rheumatologist move to another treatment, ask if Xeljanz XR is right for you. Xeljanz XR is a once-daily pill for adults with moderate to severe RA for whom methotrexate did not work well. It can reduce pain, swelling, and further joint damage, even without methotrexate. Xeljanz XR can lower your ability to fight infections, including tuberculosis. Serious, sometimes fatal infections, lymphoma, and other cancers have happened. Don't start Xeljanz XR if you have an infection, tears in the stomach or intestines, low blood cell counts, and higher liver tests and cholesterol levels have happened. Your doctor should perform blood tests before you start and while taking Xeljanz XR, and monitor certain liver tests. Tell your doctor if you are in a region where fungal infections are common, and if you have had TB, hepatitis B or C, or are prone to infections. Xeljanz XR can reduce the symptoms of RA, even without methotrexate. Ask your rheumatologist about Xeljanz XR.
Mike and I are both veterans, both served in the Navy. I do outrank my husband, not just being in the military, but at home.
She thinks she's the boss. She only had me by 1 grade. We bought our first home together in 2010.
His family had used another insurance product, but I was like, I've had USAA for a while. Why don't we call and check the rates?
It was an instant savings, and I should have changed a long time ago.
There's no point in looking elsewhere, really. We're the Tennies, and we're USAA members for life.
USAA. Get your insurance quote today.
A Hilton getaway means you get more because you get a break on breakfast. Get an extra day by the pool. Get to spend more time together. Get more from your spring break getaway with exclusive Hilton offers. Book yours only at Hilton.com.
I am totally blind. And Non-24 can make me show up too early or too late, or make me feel like I'm not really there. Talk to your doctor and call 844-234-2424.
Touch is how we communicate with those we love. But does psoriasis ever get in the way? Embrace the chance of 100% clear skin with Taltz. For people with moderate to severe psoriasis, up to 90% had a significant improvement of their psoriasis plaques. With Taltz, 4 out of 10 even achieved completely clear skin. Don't use if you're allergic to Taltz. Before starting, you should be checked for tuberculosis. Taltz may increase risk of infections and lower your ability to fight them. Tell your doctor if you have an infection, symptoms, or received a vaccine or plan to. Inflammatory bowel disease can happen with Taltz, including worsening of symptoms. Serious allergic reactions can occur. Ready for a chance at 100% clear skin? Ask your doctor about Taltz. Try it for as little as $5 a month.
Welcome to the second hour of 360 after another in what could soon be a parade of arrivals and departures at the White House. On the table tonight, not just the arrival of a new economic advisor after the firing of the Secretary of State, but signals as well of a much larger staff shakeup. Also tonight, what does the apparent victory of a Democratic candidate in a deep red congressional district have to say about the midterms in November? And later, following the money, the Stormy Daniels saga, and the links, including one that leads to a Trump golf property in Southern California and a Trump attorney. First, all the seismic activity that could be the first rumblings of a bigger staff shakeup at the White House. For that, Jeff Zeleny is at the White House for us tonight. So what have you learned about other possible staff changes that may be coming down the pike?
Anderson, you're definitely getting the sense of a spring cleaning kind of mood and moment here at the White House. The president has talked to his advisors that he is planning on making some changes. He said out loud he is about ready to have the cabinet that he wants. Never mind that we're 14, almost 15 months into this administration. But the reality here is we are expecting some changes either tomorrow or by Friday, potentially of his cabinet. The people we hear the most talked about, David Shulkin, the Veterans Affairs Secretary, of course, under fire for mismanagement, a variety of other things. Also, the National Security Advisor, H.R. McMaster, said to be, not a matter of if, but when he'll be leaving. And that sound behind me here, if you can hear it, Anderson, is the president returning from St. Louis. So he is back here at the White House. We'll see if he talks this evening, but he definitely seems to have some more staff shakeup on his mind.
And you said that some of these changes may happen even this week?
It certainly seems like that. There is a sense of edge and anxiety here, and there is a sense that the president wants to get on with it. He wants to move forward with this and get his team in place. Now, we also hear conversations about White House Chief of Staff John Kelly. How long will he be in place? Of course, we've heard these rumblings for months and months, but the firing of Secretary of State Rex Tillerson this week is a reminder that if the president's in a firing mood, something else could happen all at once here. Or, Anderson, it could not. It is entirely controlled by his decision. Most people here at the White House do not know when or if he will make these announcements. He's likely to do so on Twitter.
All right.
Anderson.
Jeff Zeleny, thanks very much. Joining us, two people who've seen shakeups up close. The two Davids, Axelrod of the Obama administration, Gergen of, well, many administrations dating back to Richard Nixon. So, David Gergen, I mean, looking at who's been fired, who's survived, what conclusions do you draw about what the president values in his staff and where this administration is headed? Can you?
I think he values two things, Anderson, increasingly. One is that he wants to be his own man. He wants to do solo. He thinks a lot of people around him have been like training wheels. He doesn't need it anymore. But also, I think he's looking for surrogates to go out on television. I think he's trying to assemble a team of surrogates. He replaced Tillerson with somebody who he thought could make a much more forceful argument for him. Gary Cohn was not often on television, but Larry Kudlow is, of course, an authority on him. He's been a star. He's been on television for 30 years, and he can go out and defend. And I think with H.R. McMaster, it's interesting that just in the last few days, the president had John Bolton in to speak for an hour, and it looked, reading the tea leaves, like he might be coming in to replace McMaster. And of course, he's very effective, articulate on television. I think the president is trying to bolster his PR team, among other things, heading toward 2018 elections.
David Axelrod, I mean, what message do you think the turnover sends, I mean, not only to the remaining staff, but anyone else that might be coming into this administration?
Well, obviously, this is, when you have, you said before there were seismic changes. When you have a volcanic president, you're going to have seismic changes, and that doesn't create a very good working environment. But, I think what's happening, and it was always odd, Gary Cohn, he really didn't match the campaign that the president ran. Tillerson was suggested to him by the foreign policy establishment that he derided as a candidate, and you always have this sense that they were there to mind the president, and he now is throwing that off and saying, I don't want that. I don't need people to tell me what to do. I don't want people to tell me what to do. And he's bringing in people who reflect his point of view and who will not challenge him. And that is concerning in a president who doesn't read, who gets a lot of his information from Fox and Friends, and who operates off of instinct. We saw it with Korea. We saw it with the tariffs. I'm just going to do these things. Well, if there's no one there to stop him, that can have some pretty catastrophic consequences.
David Gergen, though, if doing things the way he wants to do them got him this far, why shouldn't he continue doing that? If he feels he's sort of learned the ropes of the White House at this point.
Well, they've gotten him this far, but they've got him down to 35% approval ratings. And, he's got one big accomplishment, legislative accomplishment on taxes, but he's failed at most other things. So I wouldn't think that the last 14 months is a good guide. He ought to rely on his instincts. His instincts for campaigning, as we know, are first class, but his instincts, although I don't like them, but his instincts for governing are terrible. But I just want to say one other thing, Anderson. Usually a president somewhere much later in the first term does start looking for a second string, maybe after the re-election. Look for a second string. Usually that second string is weaker than the first string. And the way this president has said goodbye to people, the shabby way he treated Secretary Tillerson, never before have we seen a cabinet officer dismissed in such a, it was just pointless and really rude the way he was treated. It's really hard after that to find extremely talented people who are willing to come in, put their reputations on the line, work their tails off for this guy, and then be treated as shabbily as Rex Tillerson has been.
That is true, David, but never before have we seen a Secretary of State call the president a moron before.
And not deny it.
There's all kinds of new ground we're charting here. Yeah, so I mean, look, I don't think he treated Tillerson the right way. That's not the way you dismiss a cabinet member. But on the other hand, I think it's more concerning that you have people working for you who think that about you. And it should be concerning to the country that they thought that about him. So in some ways, he's going to get the cabinet that he wants, as he says. In other ways, he's not going to have people there who offer the depth of experience that perhaps he needs.
You know, David Gergen, I mean, it was interesting during the campaign. I remember the president saying, you know, he wanted to have differing viewpoints. He liked to have people arguing and for him to make up his own mind. Do you think that's actually the case, based on the changes?
He said that about he said that about Larry Kudlow coming in, you know, just in the last short while, that they disagreed over tariffs, for example. And then he said, because I like to have diverse viewpoints. That is not the case, broadly speaking. He's now looking for people who are much more consistent with his viewpoint, you know, particularly in the case of the State Department. With Pompeo coming in, he's much more the nationalist, and Tillerson was much more of a globalist. I think Tillerson represented the alternative point of view. Kelly represents an alternative point of view. Mattis represents an alternative point of view. And the people who represent an alternative point of view who are arguing with the president are now gradually heading toward the X's for the most part.
David Axelrod, David Gergen, I appreciate the discussion. Thank you. I want to bring in our panel, Kirsten Powers, James Schultz, Paul Begala, Tara Setmayer, and Steve Cortez. Does it make sense to you, Kirsten, that there may be this many changes of staff and cabinet level? I mean, there is always turnover, particularly after the first year, but this is obviously
This is a lot more than I think is I don't want to say normal, but common. This is not normally what you would see, and I think that it is chaotic and disruptive. At the same time, the president should have the people around him that he wants, and I think that, you know, I've said before that I think with Rex Tillerson, I probably would have fired him long before Donald Trump did, so I didn't see that to be a particularly rash thing for him to do. He wasn't that popular at the State Department. Trump didn't particularly like him. He was reportedly disrespectful to Trump. I mean, these are all sort of fireable offenses. He may have even given him an opportunity to resign. He certainly was sending the message. You know, he could have resigned. So, but then, you know, I think some of the other turnovers are, you know, a little more unusual. Having Hope Hicks, who's his closest aide, that would be like Uma Abedin just walking out on Hillary Clinton. You know, I mean, that's a very unusual thing. And so I think there is just a sense of chaos, and he said that's the way he likes it.
Jim, do you think it's a good idea if it's true that the president sort of feels more emboldened to do things his way and not be reined in, and feels, maybe, I think Maggie Haberman has been reporting that, you know, early on he may not have felt he knew the job, and now he feels he does. Is it a wise thing to kind of jettison these people and kind of do it your way?
Just because Mike Pompeo is philosophically agrees with the president doesn't mean that he's not going to challenge him. Mike Pompeo is a very, very intelligent human being, Harvard law grad, you know, just knows his space and is going to sailed the confirmation of the CIA. And I thought what was interesting is such a decisive decision, and I agree with you, Kristen, such a decisive decision to let Tillerson go, have someone in the queue ready to go, someone to replace Pompeo at the CIA. That looks like somebody who's ready to make decisions. If I'm one of those cabinet members that had the talking to over ethical issues, as it was reported in the news, I'm worried this week.
But I mean, the Tillerson thing has been, I mean, you said it was, you know, a decision and there was someone to replace him. Obviously, you would want somebody to replace him immediately, but it does seem like that was dragged out for long. It was sort of debated, talked about. I mean, the Jeff Sessions thing, he's been publicly derided for, you know, there's been stories about McMaster now for quite some time.
Right, he's never going to change, or perhaps he is changing. He is shrinking in the job. Usually people get in there, particularly people come from outside of Washington, President Reagan, President Obama, President Clinton. After some time, they do tend to inhabit the office. They gain more gravitas. They understand the power of the words of the President of the United States. And there is this growth in the job. I think this guy is like, as Gergen said, he wants the training wheels off, and we're seeing he's on steroids now. It's really extraordinary, and it's not about this staff or that. I agree with you guys. He wants to get rid of the
Well, you said he's shrinking, but he's also on steroids. Steroids generally make you
I'm not an expert on steroids, as I think you can tell. But he's becoming morally smaller.
Maybe he's becoming more cut. I don't know.
No, but there's
push back on that, and I'll give you an example.
Say this administration. Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Until he hires them, he's going to be Donald Trump.
All three.
He's going to be Donald Trump every day, and he's going to keep.
He's never asked for forgiveness, so you can forget about
on that idea that he's shrinking or that he wants ideological conformity with a very real-world example, one that matters a lot to me, which is immigration. There's tremendous debate within the administration on immigration, particularly DACA. And a lot of people, a lot of hardliners within the Trump movement want no DACA. They want it to go away. They don't want a DACA compromise. It was viciously debated, quite frankly, behind closed doors within the White House. I was privileged to be part of that. Someone who wants DACA preserved, who believes in immigration compromise. Many people opposed that view within the administration. The president came down, I think, very sensibly on saying we want a grand compromise. We want secure borders, and we do want to show magnanimity and compassion towards DACA. So I just think it's unfair to cast him as rigid and as demanding submission from his staff. And immigration is Exhibit A, I think, and why he.
But I mean, on immigration, I mean, he did have that bipartisan meeting where he seemed to agree with the Democrats and then switch to the Republicans and then back to it. And on gun control as well. Yeah. He's talking about raising the age to 21. Very publicly a number of times, and then meets with the NRA, and then now he's like, oh, well, it's up to states. We got to see the lawsuit.
Because President Trump doesn't have core convictions, and we've said this before. It's been a criticism of mine about him from the very beginning. As a conservative, I was very concerned about when the tough times come, and where do you draw from to make these tough policy decisions? And for Donald Trump, it's more about his brand and what looks good and how it plays on Fox News and to his base, as opposed to what is a good policy prescription for whatever the issue is at hand. And the fact that he vacillates so often between one thing to the next and no one really knows is probably why reports are coming out that senior staffers in the White House are calling this the most toxic work environment they have ever encountered. That is a quote from a story in Axios right now. That is not a good reflection of the boss. We also have to remember a couple of other things. Donald Trump has never answered to anyone. He's run a private company. He's never had to answer to a board of directors. He's only had to answer to himself. And we've seen when the disaster that was made of his companies in Atlantic City and other places, where that hasn't worked out so well. So unfortunately now, the best parts of him are not being seen right now, whatever those may be, other than branding himself and doing rallies. As a manager, this is not the way you can run the White House. Right now, we're looking at the Secretary of the Secretary of Veterans Affairs potentially on the chopping block. We've already lost the Secretary of State. We've already lost the Secretary of HHS. The Secretary of HUD is also in trouble. We've lost the communications director. 4 of them have gone. The National Security Advisor is on the chopping block. I mean, we can go down the list. This is not normal. This is not the way a White House should be run, and this is certainly not the way you would run a business.
I would grant you that hyper-political types like all of us, people in the news business, fixate on palace intrigue, on the supposed chaos of the West Wing. But if there's a disruptive West Wing, let's look at what matters for most Americans. Most Americans couldn't name one of the people that you just named if you gave them their title. That doesn't matter to them. What does matter to them is their prosperity and their security, and their prosperity in particular is increasing and accelerating terrifically. And small business optimism right now is at a level unseen since the 1930s.
And meanwhile, the wheels are
chaos
falling
in
off.
the country. There is optimism and growth.
I would disagree. There's not chaos in the country just because some people have some tax cuts.
And yet he's at an all-time low for a president at this stage, despite, thank God, no major wars and a strong economy. This is a guy. But the American people should have known what they were getting. He said 3 campaign managers, 3 political parties, 3 wives. He's not a guy to run the river with.
3% GDP growth, which Obama never got in 1 year. Only president of U.S. history to never do it.
Much more to talk about tonight,
never
including
got 3% GDP growth for a year.
The very latest on the congressional race deep in the heart of Trump country that could be on the verge of a big upset. Later, new developments in the Stormy Daniels story that we broke tonight. New documents suggesting a deeper link between the Trump organization and efforts to keep Stormy Daniels quiet about her alleged affair.
Sometimes you have to unfollow your old dreams to chase new ones. This is for the drivers, the ones who do more than defy rules, they change them. This is for the unfollowers. Hurry in today to test drive the first ever BMW X2 and receive exceptional offers.
There's a new place for senior care with daily laundry service. A place with a day spa. a place where seniors get the care they need in the comfort of home.